Today on the DNVR Rockies podcast, we are talking all things postseason, and what a postseason it has been so far. It has lived up to the hype and more, and a crazy amount of storylines have come out of this as well. So we're going to break it all down today right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome into our postseason podcast here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Not talking a ton about the Rockies today, although we do have a little bit of Rockies topics to get into as the show goes on. But we have some insanity to cover on this postseason podcast because the postseason has lived up to the hype and more. The Mets, Phillies, the Dodgers, Padres, even the Yankees, Royals have just been electric, to say the least. So before we get into that, though, I wanted to share a little bit of breaking news, very minor breaking news, but ESPN just announced that their new reporter who is going to be replacing Adrian Wojnarowski, is that how you pronounce it? Woj. Is it like Wojnarowski? Yeah, Woj. Replacing Woj. Shams will be replacing Woj. Catchy names still ring heavy here for ESPN. So the reason that relates here on a baseball side of things is there was some conversations a little bit about whether or not Jeff Passan, the MLB reporter, was going to be possibly switching sports and going over to take over Woj's spot at ESPN on the basketball side of things. And it was just announced that Shams is taking over on ESPN's basketball and NBA side of things today. And Jeff Passan, in the most Jeff Passan way, announced that he's staying with baseball by posting the Wolf on Wall Street gif of, Leonardo DiCaprio screaming into the microphone, "I'm not going anywhere." That was tweeted, and then he also followed up by saying, "Baseball's better anyways." We love to see that. So Jeff Passan is sticking with the MLB and ESPN. So just a little breaking news off the top. But we got a ton of stuff to talk about here. Postseason baseball. There is nothing better. And I had talked last show on Friday about how baseball is still gaining momentum, as a sport, even though other sports have kind of taken over, their reign as the number one sport in America. And I think we're seeing in this last weekend of baseball that Major League Baseball is still a premium product to watch. People who aren't even baseball fans are getting sucked into the conversations of what's happening right now in the postseason because it has just been that good. But there's a little tie-in I wanted to make to Nuggets fans that I think we saw in some of the Yankees post-game activities. So I pulled up a tweet because I was scrolling through Twitter the other day, saw this tweet here, and it was a video of Yankees fans after their win over the Royals at Yankee Stadium. They had a little chant that was going on that Nuggets fans can relate to. So can we play this? And I want you to listen closely and hear what they're saying and think about this from a Nuggets fan perspective. Out of nowhere. Just, you're at a baseball postseason game right now. It's a Yankees game. I posted this tweet out, and for those of you who maybe didn't hear that as clearly, they're saying F Embiid is basically what they're saying. And I had someone comment and be like, "That's not even the same sport." I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's the point. I think what we're starting to realize is that unless you are a specific Philadelphia fan, you pretty much, as a collective sports world outside of Philadelphia, we all hate Joel Embiid. We can all get on board with that sentiment, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, obviously. Everyone hates Embiid, and I would even go as far as to make the argument, and maybe we might even have to try this at some point. I could probably walk into any sporting event any city outside of Philadelphia and just randomly start screaming F Embiid, and I could probably get a good handful of people to join in that chant as we saw at Yankee Stadium. So I vibe with that, Yankees fans. Not a lot of things that I can relate to with Yankees fans, but in that moment, we all like to come together in our hate for Joel Embiid. So we had to start the show off with that. The Yankees did get the win over Kansas City in one of the more boring games of the postseason so far. And I say that in the sense that was still a pretty good game. It was tied going into the sixth inning or something like that. But compared to what we saw between the Phillies and the Mets and the Dodgers and the Padres, those are the two games that I want to talk about here to start this show, because chaos is the perfect encapsulating word that we saw in that game. Phillies, to start, they pulled off another classic. This is the second time the Mets in a row have been playing classic baseball I called them the cockroaches because they just won't die. The Phillies stomped on the Mets over and over and over, and out of the cracks in the floor that the guts of the Mets had been stomped into, they just appeared once again like cockroaches, and it's just an incredible sight to see. Now, the Phillies did end up miraculously winning that ball game. They had 3 comebacks throughout that game. They ended up walking it off with Castellanos getting the game-winning walk-off hit. They won that game 7-6. The Mets were down to their final inning and a half of baseball, down by 2 runs. Vientos comes up, hits the game-tying home run. Howie Rose, another incredible call. If you haven't heard it, you got to go on Twitter. There's the highlights of that Howie Rose Mets play-by-play radio call. Just classic baseball all around. I wanted to throw this stat out there, though, because I think this is an interesting thing to look at from a series perspective when we're talking about the Phillies in the postseason. The Phillies are 0-7 in postseason series after losing game 1 of the series. So I was listening to the PHLY watch along and watching a little bit of their reaction because, again, just a roller coaster of emotions for Phillies fans and Mets fans. But they were describing that game yesterday as a must-win game for the Phillies. You play your first 2 games at home in Philadelphia. The crowd is in it. Obviously, you're the number 1 team in your division. You had that bye week per se, not having to play a wild card team. We are going to talk about that and whether or not that's a factor. Having that extended rest. We're going to talk about that later in the show. But I agree. I think it was a must-win game yesterday for the Phillies, and they came in and started super slow. I literally put out a tweet saying the Phillies cannot buy a hit with runners in scoring position if their life depended on it. There were guys at second, guys at third, and they'd strike out, fly out, ground out, whatever it was. The Phillies could not get the runners home. And then you get up into a certain spot, and Bryce Harper comes up. And the broadcast was saying, how do you approach this at bat with Bryce Harper? Do you go straight at him? Do you pitch around him, but that Castellanos is behind him? Well, Severino decided to pitch at Bryce Harper, and Bryce Harper does what Bryce Harper does best, with 2 strikes, no less. Hits a home run, dead center field. That woke the crowd up. And then Castellanos, I don't know, did some celebrity die or something? Because usually it takes a major tragic event in world, across the country or across the world to happen for Castellanos to go and have the game that he had yesterday. I didn't hear of anything crazy happening. Castellanos just balled out yesterday, not only having the game winner, but then the back-to-back home runs with Bryce Harper. Incredible. So I want to go back and talk about Bryce Harper because I want to highlight this conversation that the broadcast had, which Adam Amin did an incredible job, by the way, on the play-by-play side of things for that. But they were talking about, how do you approach Bryce Harper? And I think it's interesting because it's a similar conversation to how do you approach Shohei Ohtani. You've got Mookie Betts hitting right behind Shohei. You've got Castellanos hitting behind Bryce Harper. Do you want to go after a guy in Bryce Harper who can do what he did and hit a home run at any point if you make a mistake to him and change the trajectory of the game? The only thing that I kind of had an issue with when we were discussing how you approach Bryce Harper and saying, well, do you kind of pitch around him and then you just know you got to battle down when you go get Castellanos? As a former pitcher, to me, and maybe this is overly aggressive because Bryce Harper is Bryce Harper, one of the best hitters in baseball. I think you just got to go after him. Like, it's one of those things where you are, even though you might not be Bryce Harper, equivalent to Bryce Harper as a pitcher, you're still a major league pitcher. You're still in the top 0.1% of baseball players in the world. And the fact that you're out there in the postseason pitching against Bryce Harper, like, trust your stuff. Now, yes, maybe you have to, focus up a little bit harder than you would if you were facing Alec Boehm, who, has struggled a lot recently. But I think if you can get a game plan going at Bryce Harper saying, I'm going to go nothing high, nothing is going to be high. If I'm approaching Bryce Harper from a pitching standpoint, I am not throwing a single thing up in the zone. I know he chases, but I also know that he can lay into a high fastball or whatever you leave up in the zone. I'm staying just low and away. Make Bryce Harper take that pitch to the opposite field. That's the only way that I would approach Bryce Harper. But I don't like this idea of like, we're just going to be okay with walking Bryce Harper. Like, Castellanos is a dude. And as a pitcher, like, you trust your stuff, you go after him, try to get ahead in the count, and just don't make a mistake. Like, that's what you've got to, that's how I would approach him as a pitcher. Again, easier said than done. I get it. Severino's a great pitcher and made one mistake, and Bryce Harper made him pay. But I understand why the broadcasters have that discussion of like, how do you approach pitching to Bryce Harper? I just personally think like it's, as a pitcher, you just got to be a dog. Like, go out there and just, strike first, literally. Like, that's all you can do when you go against a guy like Bryce Harper. So again, though, Phillies earned that win. They played incredible baseball. The Mets played incredible baseball. They found their bats that kind of came alive there towards the end. It took them a while to get things going, but yeah, that's the way it goes. Just a final note on this Mets and Phillies series before we talk about the crazy Dodgers-Padres game. The Mets did play their 11th road game in a row on Sunday, which just goes to show to me, like, how incredible this run that the Mets have been on recently has actually been, because they played 11 straight road games, including their entire wild card, series. Like, this, that's so hard to do what they've been doing, even if you're playing at home in front of your home crowd. And they've done it on the road in some very challenging places to play at, no less. Playing, in the Brewers Stadium, playing in Philadelphia. Like, it's wild that the Mets are doing what they're doing on the road. And to put that into perspective as well, the Rockies had a .230 winning percentage on the road this year. No one's saying that the Rockies are a postseason team, obviously. It's just, it goes to show, like, when you want to be a postseason team, you got to win games on the road, especially because I don't see the Rockies being a team that's going to go out and win the division anytime soon. So if the Rockies have a chance to make it to the postseason in the next couple of years, it's probably going to be via the wild card, and maybe even via a road wild card start like the Mets have. The Mets kind of snuck in there to the postseason at the end. You got to win games on the road. You can't go into a playoffs with a .230 winning percentage on the road and expect to go play 11 straight road games against incredible teams and do what the Mets are doing. So I give credit to the Mets for what they've been doing, playing lights out baseball. I do want to break down this whole Padres Dodgers thing, because it has been absolutely insane what happened yesterday out in Dodger Stadium. Will Carpenter in the Toyota chat says, "Stay classy, Dodger fans." That's going to be our motto of the show today. We got some video that I found online circulating that actually showed a really great view of what happened in the exchange between Dodger fans and Padres fans. So here in just a moment, after we take this first break, I'm going to talk to you and show you guys a little bit about what happened out there in what was that, left field between Profar and Dodger fans. But before we get into that, got to give some love to our friends over at UC Health, because right now, this offseason in baseball, or this season, whatever it is right now, whatever time of year it is right now, UC Health wants you to live your healthiest life. And look, it's not just seasonal either. Like, they want you to be healthy no matter what. But Colorado somehow, some way, has fallen to second place. We have the second healthiest state in the country, which is shocking to me, because Coloradans are extremely healthy individuals. And UC Health wants you to get back to The wants Colorado to get back to their rightful place as the healthiest state in the U.S. So using a combination of nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mindfulness, you just want to start living your healthiest life with those kind of different combinations. This week, one of my goals is to get back into the gym consistently. With the Rockies wrapping up their season and, football season for me, calling football games, high school and college games. It's just been super hectic. Haven't had a chance to stick with my consistent gym routine. So this week we're back on it. I went to the gym with Marissa this morning and felt pretty good. Although her leg workouts destroy me every single time. So if I hobble into the studio tomorrow for TDSP, that's why. But look, it's those little changes that can help you to live your healthiest life. So if you want to join in on UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge, click on the link in the show notes of this podcast or go to uchealth.org/ready-set-co. Well, we also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota because Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and they are the best when it comes to really getting anywhere out on the road. Whether you want to get up into the mountains to enjoy those fall leaves, a little leaf peeping still going on up in the mountains, I've heard, although it's getting lower and lower elevation as we speak. Or you got to go downtown, going to the Broncos game, dealing with all the traffic, whatever it is, Toyota has you covered. Right now, they offer 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive options like the Epic 4Runner, of course, one of my favorites, RAV4, the hybrid. They've got the Highlander. They've also got some pretty cool trucks, Tacoma, Tundra. They've got it all. Whatever you're looking for, whether it's an SUV, a sedan, hybrid, they've got it all at Toyota. So you visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you, AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe in Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and the Rockies. All right. Let's talk a little bit about what happened at the Padres and Dodgers game because it was pretty wild. I was watching the game and I was cooking, getting kind of some meals prepped, and so I was in and out. I could hear the game on in the background. I'd check every once in a while. And then I walked out of the room for a second, came back in the room, and there's security all over the field. They're Profar is livid. He's screaming at Dodger fans. Fernando Tatis is using his hips to taunt Dodger fans. We'll just put that politely. It was chaos. Manny Machado is dropping F-bomb after F-bomb at Jack Flaherty in the dugout. It was, first of all, electric. As a fan, you're watching that holy hell, what's going on? So I did find this video though, and I wanted to show this. It was taken from the angle of Dodgers fans here, and I want you and Alyssa, you can leave the audio off from the tweet. I'll just kind of speak over it, but you can play this tweet. So you can see Profar comes up to Dodger fans, and he hands this guy a ball. Now this guy's a douche and throws it back. Okay, so whatever. But also Profar, kind of what did you expect? It's Dodger fans, and they hate you. Profar did rob a home run in that exact spot. Now you see another ball comes in. There's a security guard who's sitting off to the left there as well, not doing a single thing. Now pointing hey, bud, what are you doing? It's my job to say something. Now I got to stand up and do something here. Now Profar's running off. Now this was before he had a ball thrown at him. So this is all during commercial break right now. So we haven't seen this yet. Now they come back from commercial. Profar starts to come back out towards that left field spot, and he's talking to the umpires. And this is when he starts yelling at this is what we see on TV. He started yelling at Dodger fans here towards the end of this, kind of going back and forth. You see him yelling at guys there. And then another ball gets thrown out here. I believe, yeah, see, here he is. Now he's yelling at Dodger fans. That's what we saw. That's when the TV broadcast picks that up, and we saw that. And then another ball gets thrown closer to him. So that was about 3 or 4 balls that were thrown at him in the span of, 30 seconds to 45 seconds. And I think after the last one happened, not the one we saw there, but when you were watching the TV broadcast, you saw a ball get kind of thrown in. I think that was kind of the last straw. And then Profar got pissed, and he's screaming, he's freaking out, and like I said, Manny Machado's yelling there. It was chaos. But what I saw from that was that, Profar, first of all, dude, you gotta just not talk to the Dodgers fans. Like, what do you expect is going to happen there? I can appreciate the positivity of like, or at least what it looked like from a positive standpoint of him going and giving a ball to a Dodger fan. But like, Profar had just robbed a home run in which he 1,000% taunted that very row of Dodger fans right there. Like, he literally caught the ball in that guy's face and just like bounced up and down a couple times, like taunting them. Fair also. No arguments or complaints for me on that. I would have done the exact same thing if I was Profar. But then you have to realize that Dodger fans are going to do their very best to troll you back. And so like that's kind of where that all started. What obviously got him pissed off was that I think people started throwing the ball at Profar. There was a moment when I kind of went back and watched some videos from the stands. That guy who did throw the ball that Profar handed him, he said to the security guard after everything started getting all like, worked up, he said, like, I wasn't throwing it at Profar. I was throwing it just back onto the field, which again, you can get ejected for that right then and there, bro. You probably paid $500 for those tickets. Like, don't do that. It's not worth it. But he in that moment said, I wasn't trying to throw it at him. But so like that whole situation was a lot. Now, of course, Joe Davis, John Schmaltz, they're the broadcasters. They're obviously disappointed. Also, they are Dodgers broadcasters. Let's throw that out there. They're doing the national game, but they are the normal play-by-play guys play-by-play and color guy for the Dodgers in the regular season. So they have they have some connection to the Dodgers fans and to the Dodger Stadium. So they were obviously really bummed and kind of embarrassed, it sounded like. Here's my take on this, though. I have no problem with any of it. Now, obviously, you feel for Profar and the outfielders who are kind of out there, and you want to protect their safety. They're kind of out there just on an island. So I understand them being frustrated and pissed off about things getting thrown at them. That can't happen. But from everything else that happened around that, Dodgers fans yelling at Tatis, yelling at Machado yelling at Flaherty, Profar taunting Dodgers fans, Tatis taunting Dodgers fans, I have no problem with any of that. That is playoff baseball. That's how rivalries are built. That's how you build an audience too. Like that's some of the most exciting forms of postseason baseball, where you build this energy and intensity through taunting, through yelling it back and forth at each other, through smack talking. Like that's how you build a deeper story as the postseason continues. These are two incredibly passionate fan bases, for all of their faults. Incredibly passionate fan bases, the Dodgers and the Padres. This series is going to go back to San Diego. The Padres fans are going to be lighting up Dodger fans in the outfield, in the dugouts, whatever that looks like. It's going to go both ways. I absolutely love that. Like, that is what we need in baseball. I know all the soft, this is a family sport, people are going to go all up in arms and come at me. And I get it, right? Like, maybe don't bring your kids to a game in that specific environment, where you're in that type of section. Maybe if you're going to go bring your kids to a Dodger game, go sit a little bit further away from the field where you're not like in the thick of all of that. But either way, like, that's just, sports is intense. And baseball, I think, gets a bad rap of being this sport that's like kind of just calm and casual and like everyone's just chilling. Like, no, give me that energy. I want to see guys screaming at each other all game long. And I want to see that intensity. Burge, you're talking about Phillies and Giants, of the NLCS. Those are two very passionate fan bases. The Giants-Dodgers games are always electric. I grew up in a Giants household, as a kid. So I have a lot of hate for the Dodgers even before I moved to Colorado. Like, it is what makes baseball fun. I would absolutely love to see a Phillies-Yankees type series, moving forward. Dodgers-Yankees would be fun. Like, Yankees versus anyone would be fun. Like, you can't tell me that, like, I don't know, like Cleveland and the Dodgers are a better series or a better matchup than, the Yankees or Yankees and Mets. Like, oh my gosh, that would be incredible. So I'm all for these like kind of like intense storylines. Like I even remember when going back to the whole Rockies thing, when Cal Quantrill, when he shot from the hip on the Boston Red Sox catcher Reese McGuire after him and McGuire started jawing at each other, and he pulled up some previous legal battles that Reese McGuire had been going through from some pretty weird stuff that had happened in his past. Like that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's just like, that's sports, like that's, you hate to be on the losing end of that, the losing side of that, but like that was one of the most electric moments for like the Rockies. Like I remember seeing people being like, Cal Quantrill's a forever Rocky. Like that was the moment, like, and he's probably going to get traded this year. He's probably going to get like moved away from the Rockies this offseason, but he will always have a place in Rockies fans' hearts because of that moment, and Profar, same thing for Padres fans. And then Dodger fans, they're trying to create their own story as well. As that series is evened up, and the Padres with a little bit of a blowout there, 6 home runs, 10-2 win. That's the other thing about that is like if you're gonna go out there and talk smack, like you better go out and win. Like that's you can't just go talk a big game and then get punched in the face. From a game standpoint, it's why there's been so much conversation around like CU this year and like Coach Prime, the biggest talker in college football. Like if you're going to be that guy, you've got to go get wins to back that up. And CU so far has done pretty well here in this second half of the opening few games of the season. But Padres did that, man. Last night they went all out. Manny Machado called a little huddle in the dugout, got all his guys together, which I haven't seen since Hunter Pence did that with the Giants back in their championship run, their World Series run back in, 2010 or something like that? I think that was 12, actually. It was their 2012 World Series that Hunter Pence got the Giants all together, and they would do their little pregame, little huddles that they would have before. You don't see that very often in baseball. Manny Machado said, hey, guys, look, we're, let's lean into this. This is, these Dodger fans suck. We all hate them. Like, let's give them a show. And God, did they. I mean, Machado came out the next inning, got a hit. Fernando Tatis hit a home run. Like, they were all over it. To wrap up our conversations, though, on the Dodgers-Padres from a game standpoint, Mookie Betts is 0 for 22 in the postseason, dating back to last year. Now, I would never even think about having this conversation if we didn't see the Phillies kind of do this on their end by benching Alec Boehm. But I was actually asked this question on Twitter. Someone asked me, do you bench Mookie Betts or think about benching Mookie Betts, given that he literally has been non-existent in the postseason for the Dodgers? And I don't think they will. I actually know they won't. I'd be shocked if they benched Mookie Betts, just given the 1-2 combo that can be Mookie and Shohei. He's also too good of an outfielder. Like you can't get rid of his glove. Alec Boehm, you can be okay not having in the outfield or in the playing third base, but for the Phillies. But I do think that's interesting to think about because you start to create that narrative in your mind of, he knows he's 0 for 22. Does that start to play into his mindset when he gets up there and thinks to himself, like, man, I've just sucked. Like, I cannot get a hit to save my life in the postseason. I just think it's something to keep an eye on. Mookie Betts is a great player. There's no denying that. He's an multi-time All-Star, MVP candidate in years past. Like, he's an incredible player. But that is something to talk about. And the Dodgers are one of those teams historically that have had issues like that. Clayton Kershaw, perfect example. A guy who is going to be a Hall of Famer, Cy Young winner. And he will also go into the Hall of Fame with that big asterisk next to his name saying he never showed up in the postseason, ever. And he's not even on their roster right now. I think Clayton Kershaw's career is over from a postseason standpoint. I don't know if he ever will be able to compete at the level that the Dodgers are expecting him to be at. And I mean, you can literally make the argument that Clayton Kershaw never had a successful postseason ever. So that's wild. But Mookie Betts kind of right in there with him with the whole situation, with the Dodgers and all of that good stuff. But let's take another quick break. And after the break, I want to talk a little bit about whether or not it's better or worse to have a break being the number one seed in your division. Does that help your team if you get a week off before you start playing postseason games? Does it hurt your team? We're going to talk about that when we come back from break here. But right now, I want to share some love with our friends over at Breck Distillery, because Breck Distillery has in my opinion, the best bourbon whiskey really anywhere. One of the best bourbon whiskeys that I've ever tried, and especially here in Colorado. They are one of a kind. It's the world's highest distillery. I don't know if from a scientific standpoint that helps. I don't know if there's something about crafting whiskey up at elevation that helps with the taste. But whatever it is, whatever they do at Breck Distillery, it is incredible. It's award-winning, I should say, as well. They've got the best whiskey in the market. I was really bummed I was not at the tailgate yesterday for the Broncos, because I know Breck Distillery always has incredible whiskey, and we always get to see, Breck Distillery making an appearance over at the DNVR tailgates at the bar here, at the DNVR bar. It is truly one of a kind, the best whiskey on the market. I just have fond memories of my introduction to Breck Distillery whiskey, taking shot skis with Lindsay Spano, who happy birthday to Lindsay as well, by the way, today. Lindsay Spano and Spencer Smith and Marissa, and we would all just take shot skis of Breck Distillery whiskey. It was incredible, just great times to be had by all, and so I know those tailgates are a lot of fun when paired with some Breck Distillery whiskey. And right now you can enter to win 2 tickets to Denver Broncos games in the Breckenridge Bourbon Whiskey Suite. Share how you celebrate Broncos by posting your photos to social media using hashtag Broncos Bourbon. Also use code DNVR at checkout for free shipping on all orders over $99. Learn more at BreckenridgeDistillery.com. Also got to share some love with our friends over at Shady Rays, because at Shady Rays, they do sunglasses the best in the business. They are the best in the business when it comes to the sunglasses game. I've got some Shady Rays over here on the table here. We don't go anywhere without them, especially in Colorado, where you need a good pair of sunglasses. I still can't get over the fact that Marissa, when I met her, didn't own a pair of sunglasses, and I'm like, we live in Colorado. What are we doing here? You have to have sunglasses at all times. It could be the middle of winter and it's almost worse. I didn't know you could sunburn your eyes from the snow. That's a thing. I learned that the hard way. I actually went hiking in my home state in Washington. I went hiking up at Mount Rainier a couple years back, and we didn't have sunglasses, and it was Mount Rainier obviously has snow year round, and it was blindingly sunny. And I came home and my eyes were red. It was insane. So yeah, don't make my mistake. Don't do what Marissa and I have done in the past and not be prepared when it comes to sunglasses. The winters are coming. You don't want to get that sunburn on your eyes. Get some Shady Rays and make sure you help yourself out there. Shady Rays is the best at getting you good sunglasses. And right now they've got a great deal at Shady Rays. Using code DNVR, you can see it on your screen there. Using code DNVR, you get 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, so I brought up this question before the break. Is winning the division better or worse from a momentum standpoint, knowing that baseball is a sport where you don't take breaks? The All-Star break is it, and you get 3 days for the All-Star break if you're not playing in the All-Star game. Baseball is a sport where you, even on your days off, you're still playing, you're still practicing, you're still traveling, doing whatever. 162 games, and so then all of a sudden you win the division. You're the Dodgers or you're the Phillies or the Yankees or whatever. You win the division, and you just have a week off. And obviously you're doing simulated games, you're practicing, you're doing all of that stuff, but it's not the same. And I go back to a conversation I had with Warren Schaefer, the infield coach for the Colorado Rockies, a potential frontrunner if the Rockies were to move on from Bud Black of being the next Rockies coach, if that was to happen. But I remember a conversation I had with him where he was the hardest thing, one of the biggest challenges for some of these young players that the Rockies are bringing in is like these guys are coming out of college or even out of the minor leagues, and you're having to like get them shifted into this mindset of like every single day is a work day. You don't have days off in baseball ever. You get to the stadium at 9 a.m. every morning, even earlier if you have a day game, and you go home at midnight. And and that's your day every single day of the summer. And so it leads me to feel like having that break is actually more detrimental than it is to just keep playing. Now, again, from a numbers standpoint, from a statistics standpoint, from an analytics standpoint, the nerds would probably say that no, like it's better for you to have rest. It's better for you to give your pitchers rest. It's better from an injury standpoint. But I think the baseball intangible side of things would say, no, it's better to be the New York Mets, play 11 straight road games, and to just keep your momentum going. Like that's what you have to do. And we saw last year, the Braves had their big break, as they won the division, and then they got kind of smoked in their division series, and they blamed their lack of offense on that. Well, the Phillies bats all the way up until about the 6th inning yesterday, or maybe it was the 5th inning, the Phillies bats couldn't hit at all. I mean, the Mets were just, their pitchers were just steamrolling the Phillies. And I started thinking to myself, man, I wonder if this has to do with the Phillies taking that break. But I remember how much trash talk the Phillies had last year against the Braves when the Braves used that as an excuse. And I'm like, okay, well, the Phillies can't use that as an excuse this year because they spent so much time trashing the Braves for using that as an excuse. So Phillies just have to figure it out. And they did, but it took a while. It took a while to get back on top of things. Now, the Dodgers, Padres, their break, I haven't seen as much of, the Dodgers have kind of jumped right back into things pretty quickly there. Yankees, the Guardians, also same thing. So, obviously these teams are just going to figure it out. But personally, if it's me, man, I just want to keep playing. Like, I think that long break is challenging for some of these teams. So something I just wanted to throw out there. You guys can continue this conversation with me on Twitter, because I always love talking about some of those kind of weird storylines of if that is something that actually affects players or not. But yeah, interesting thing to think about. I wanted to also bring something else up, and this is more close to home for my heart, because I come from a play-by-play background. I come from a broadcasting background, but I put this tweet out yesterday, and I wanted to pose this as well on the podcast. But I feel like the broadcasters this postseason have actually been bad, if I can say that. Like, I mean, I actually have been kind of disappointed by what I've seen from a broadcasting perspective this postseason. The first person that I want to talk about, Michael Kay, who is normally the Yankees TV play-by-play guy. He got to do one of the wild card series. And Michael Kay's fine doing Yankees games, but I actually watched the national broadcast that he did. It was kind of boring. It was kind of bland. He also messed up a couple big calls, which I don't try to be too technical about things, because I know how hard it is for, to in the moment to encapsulate those moments clearly and concisely, as some of those broadcasters do. So I won't be too hard on him for messing up some of those calls, but I just thought it was kind of boring. It was kind of a boring call. He does great for Yankees games, but when he's not calling Yankees games, I'm kind of whatever about it. Bob Costas, this one's the interesting one, and I got some pushback on this when I put the tweet out there. I think Bob Costas needs to retire. Guy's been calling games for 100 years, it feels like. And he looks exactly the same as when he was calling the Olympics back in, he literally looks no different. He looks the exact same. And his voice is iconic. I'm not against Bob Costas as a broadcaster in general. He's just older. And I'm of the breed of broadcasters of this should be energizing. I love broadcasters that can build energy. That's why I loved the Howie Rose home run call for Pete Alonso, to bring the Mets to the NLDS, because he was so not only clear about his call, but the emotion there, the inflection of the broadcast was so impressive. Like, I love that energy. I am one of the few people, and I'm going to probably get canceled instantly for saying this, that actually isn't a huge Vin Scully fan. I like Vin Scully. Like, I think he has an iconic baseball broadcasting voice, and his stories are unparalleled. Like, I am not saying that Vin Scully is a bad broadcaster or was a bad broadcaster. He was the best to ever do it. But personally, I just love a broadcaster who can get wrapped in the inflection and emotion of a game through the levels of their voice. And Vin Scully was obviously very, he used his words to bring the emotion in more than he did the level of his voice. So again, I'm not against Vin Scully. I just, he just personally, I like some more emotion there. Bob Costas feels the same way to me, where there was a moment when he's calling the game, and he's saying, Aaron Judge rounding third, heading home, and he will score, and it's 2-0 Yankees. And it's okay, cool, but give us more, bring me in. That's where I want to hear guys, and he's rounding third and he scores. Yankees up 2-0. That's what I want to hear from that. So, again, Bob Costas is iconic. He's going to be if he's not already, he will be a Hall of Fame broadcaster. He's won every award known to broadcasting. But just a little thing for me. Joe Davis. Burge says he's not a fan of Joe Davis' voice in football or baseball in the Toyota chat. I'm going to disagree with you there. Joe Davis is incredible. My only downside to Joe Davis right now is he shouldn't be calling nationally televised Dodger games when he is the Dodgers play-by-play guy the entire season. That's my only thing about Joe Davis with the broadcast that he's had right now. Joe Davis is incredible. He lives into the emotion. His home run call for Shohei Ohtani 2 nights ago, when Shohei Ohtani hit the home run, his first ever postseason, he home run, and Joe Davis goes did we have any doubt? That's incredible, okay, great calls. But, and this isn't a knock on Joe Davis either. I don't blame him for this, but it's inevitable that he is going to be biased towards the Dodgers. I think he's actually genuinely trying not to be. I think he really is doing his best to not be biased. But when you have the best player in the world on the team that you call games for your entire season, and then you have to go and call unbiased, neutral postseason games at Dodger Stadium, what do we expect? You can't blame Joe Davis for that. Of course he's going to lean more towards the Dodgers. So I actually been a little bummed about the postseason. Now, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on who's your favorite broadcasters that, from baseball standpoint, that you grew up with or that you've loved over the years. Drew Goodman, obviously, an incredible broadcaster, TV broadcaster for the Rockies, Jack Corrigan, Schemmel, these are all, the Rockies have great broadcasters. But even from a national standpoint, my favorite broadcaster, and I might get some hate for this too, my favorite broadcaster growing up that was the voice of baseball to me was Joe Buck. And I know people don't like Joe Buck because Joe Buck says very obvious things, and I get that. But actually, from a technical standpoint, Joe Buck is an incredible broadcaster. From a broadcasting perspective, he does a really good job of, really kind of working into the ups and downs and the shifts of emotion throughout a game, the roller coaster of the games. But I also think his voice is just iconic to me. I just grew up with it, so I loved his voice, growing up as a baseball guy. Will says Dave Campbell, another incredible broadcaster. Dan Schulman, a sleeper pick for me. He used to be the voice of Sunday Night Baseball, and he has that iconic, super low voice. It's Sunday Night Baseball, everyone, on ESPN. He has that really low, ESPN classic baseball voice. He also does college basketball. He's also the voice of the Toronto Blue Jays, which is pretty good. So, Dan Schulman, one of my favorites. Again, I also grew up in a Giants household. So, Dwayne Kuiper, Mike Krukow, legends, John Miller, voice of MLB 2K when I was growing up, as well as the radio calls. I remember listening to Kruk and Kipe, their call of Barry Bonds 756. You're right, Diaz. Kruk and Kipe can get a little slow. They are also on the older side of things. You got a lot of older broadcasters in baseball. It is a thing that, like, if you become the broadcaster for a team in baseball, you kind of just, like, that's your job forever until, like, you either die or get pushed out. But Kruk and Kipe, yep, definitely. They're on my bucket list of guys to meet. I've gotten to meet a few broadcasters since I've only been doing this gig for the second half of the season. I didn't get to go to a Giants Rockies home series. The Giants and Rockies played in San Francisco this year, and I like my bucket list of guys to meet in the press box and in the media like dining hall before the games. Kruk and Kipe, Dave Fleming, John Miller, like. Any of those Giants broadcasters, they're truly one of the best broadcasting teams from a radio and television standpoint in the business. So that's on my bucket list. Will, you were saying Kruko was on the Rockies' first TV broadcast for a year in 1993. I actually didn't know that. I'll have to go back and check. To see that. That's news to me. Like I said, I grew up, listening to Kruk and Kipe, with Giants games as a kid. So that's cool. That's really cool. That was about 5 years before I was born, by the way. So a little bit before my time. But yeah, I always love talking about the broadcasting side of things because, again, that's where my career started. That's where my career still lies, is on the broadcasting side of things as well. So. Will, you were saying it was Kuiper. Again, I'm still going to look like either way. That's awesome. I got to check that out. Really cool connection there, especially in that NL West vibe. But let's take another quick break, and we got to talk a little bit about some of these upcoming games, and we got a lot more to cover here, and we've only got about 10 minutes left here in the show. I got to share with you guys. We've got some upcoming events here for DNVR. We've got a tailgate coming up on October 13th. Alyssa, you were at the Broncos tailgate yesterday. I haven't had a chance to make it out to a Broncos tailgate. It looked incredible, though. I've been to plenty of Broncos tailgates in the past. Yesterday, though, Raiders, Broncos tailgates, the throwback jerseys, always good vibes.
Oh, it was incredible. It was a vibe. That was the first one I've ever been to. Don't
Really?
know why I hadn't made it out there till now, but it's incredible. Cornhole, beer pong, pizza.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Primo Hoagies. It was incredible. Breck Distillery, Breck Brews, Coors. It's incredible.
It's a vibe all around. I like I said, I haven't been to one this year. I've been to DNVR tailgates for years now. And this is the first year I haven't been to one yet. So I am going to plan on going to this one on the 13th. I'm bummed that I missed the Raiders and throwback game, and also a good win for the Broncos. You know who looked like they had the greatest time in the world? Jake Schwanitz. Let's all check on our buddy Jake when you have a chance. Give some love to Jake, the one of the Buffs guys. I don't know if you guys saw his video on Twitter. He was having a great time yesterday. We'll just say that. He was very emotional about the Broncos win. That's what happens when you have a CU bye week. You just got to go all in on the Broncos Raiders. Alyssa, I saw you made it onto that video, so thank you on behalf of everyone. And Jake especially, thank you for taking care of Jake and making sure I
made sure he was okay.
He was safe and sound. We think. We've heard good things from him since then, but might be a tough day for him today. Also, Nuggets preseason watch party coming up here on the 15th. So a couple days after that Broncos tailgate, Nuggets got a preseason watch party and a tarot card reading. Things are getting wild at the DNVR bar. That's going to be on October 15th here at the DNVR bar. But any of the events we have, you guys got to check them out at thednvr.com/events. Avs got a big takeover coming up here soon. I don't have the date on that one, but again, thednvr.com/events. That's where you can find all that information. It's a good time to be involved here at DNVR. Also got to share some love with our friends over at Game Time, because whether you're into the sporting events, whether you're into live concerts, whatever it is, you gotta use our friends at Game Time. There's a nice little concert coming up at the end of October, kind of a Halloween themed concert that I just got tickets for Marissa and I, and I went through Game Time, and the process was super easy. It's at a really weird venue too, so it's actually at a It's at an old, like kind of like abandoned church, not abandoned, but like a church venue now. Very haunted, Halloween-y kind of vibes. It's going to be super cool. And I use Game Time to get those tickets. It's super easy. So whether it's concerts or sporting events, whatever it is, Game Time has you covered. And they actually have this really cool thing where you can kind of check and see. On some venues, you can see where your seat is, what the view is going to look like. It gives you a panoramic view. They've also got Game Time Picks, which kind of filters through all of the extra tickets to make sure you get the ticket that you want. They've got a lot of cool things, though, at Game Time. So be sure to get the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right. We've got some wild card, or not wild card, ALDS news coming up here for you. We've got a couple big games on the horizon, but I wanted to first start. We've got our only Rockies topic of the day that I wanted to talk about here for a second. And I want to address something here because I talked about it a little bit with MLB.com writer Thomas Harding on the show on Friday. But I want to follow up a little bit here today. The Rockies have been in pretty much radio silence for the first 2 weeks of their offseason. Now, normally that's not that shocking if you're a kind of middle-of-the-run team. But for Rockies, the team that's trying to rebuild, to make a ton of moves that are hopefully helping to set up a playoff team in the coming years, and a team that has a lot of questions looming, it's been weird to me that we haven't heard anything from the Rockies. And I'm not the only one saying this. I'm seeing articles coming out from Patrick Saunders at the Denver Post or Purple Row or Thomas Harding even with MLB.com, although he's a little more, national MLB.com Rockies news, not as much, kind of behind the scenes stuff. But either way, we're all kind of starting to ask, what's going on with the Rockies? Right? Like we know this has been a thing for the Rockies in the past. They're not a team that has been overly aggressive in making off-season moves, as a franchise. But the big question that looms right now is, what are we doing with Bud Black? Are you extending him? Are you getting rid of him and going in a different direction? Usually that's decisions made within that first week of the offseason. We saw the Giants got rid of Farhan Zahidi and have Buster Posey now as their new president of baseball operations. So they're making moves. Terry Francona was hired to be the Reds' new manager. They're making moves. I just am a little surprised that we haven't heard anything. Now, I know Thomas was hesitant to say this because, again, he comes from a more journalistic side of the coin, where he's saying, I'm only looking, at things from the perspective of, what have I been told directly? And if I haven't been told anything directly, then I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to speculate a little bit because that's the type of business that I'm in here on a talk show. I feel like the radio silence from the Rockies this week, or these last 2 weeks, leads me to believe that they're going to be sticking with Bud Black. Because if you are planning to move on from Bud Black, I think they would be having a lot more conversations on what the next step is going to be and embracing that and giving, press conferences and press releases and, getting to know the new coach and all of that kind of thing. That's all stuff that happens very early in the offseason. The fact that we haven't heard anything from them leads me to believe that they're going to stick with Bud Black. That's just my gut, that's just my gut feeling here. Again, I don't know. I don't have all the answers here. I'm only speculating. But that's what I'm being led to believe, just given the radio silence. So the Rockies had said to the media before the season ended, we will give you guys an answer within the first week. Well, we're on week 2 now, right? We're at week 2 of the offseason. Haven't heard anything. It's Monday. So maybe we hear something today. I don't know. either way, we're going to keep you guys posted on that. You can follow us on Twitter at DNVR_Rockies or follow me on Twitter at CJJ Saez. But I don't know. Rockies making us wait. As if there was anything else we would want to talk about with the Rockies this offseason. They're making us wait. So let's preview some of the upcoming games. We've got some big games today. It is American League Day today across MLB postseason. Only 2 games. Tigers, Guardians, Yankees, Royals. Skubal on the mound for the Tigers. He has only allowed 1 run in 7 innings pitched versus Cleveland this season. This is a must-win game for the Tigers. Why? Because I've said it before. I don't think the Tigers have the depth from a starting pitching rotation spot to compete beyond Skubal in a 7-game series. Doesn't mean they won't. I just think that's going to be a challenge for them. You're hoping that one of your other starters has a kind of surprise late inning game. They have a good bullpen, but has a surprise late inning game. So what that means to me is that Skubal being on the mound today, that's a must-win game because he's your best pitcher. He is the best pitcher in baseball, literally. You have to win. You have to win a game where he's on the mound. And they lost game 1 to the Guardians. Got to win game 2 here, even up the series at 1-1 when you go back to Detroit. Yankees and Royals. Carlos Rodon for the Yankees making his postseason debut facing Cole Ragans. I'm going to tie something in that I was talking about with Mookie Betts being over 22 in the postseason. Aaron Judge, star player on the Yankees. He is 1 for 20 in his last 5 postseason games dating back to 2022. I don't know what it is about the postseason and being kryptonite for some of these stars, but man, some of these guys need to find their swing in the postseason. Judge is due for a big game. The other thing I'm a little nervous about, Carlos Rodon. He's been a good pitcher, but whenever you make your postseason debut, you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get out of a guy in his first postseason game ever. The spotlight is really big. The crowd noise is there. The energy is there. You got to buckle down. And New York is a brutal place if you start sucking right off the bat. New York is not going to be a forgiving environment. So what does that do to Rodon? We'll find out. 2 big games coming up here this afternoon. That's going to do it for our show, though, this week. Today. We've got 2 more shows this week. But our Monday show, that's going to do it for us here today on the show. I appreciate you guys in the Toyota chat. You guys have been great today. We're going to keep things rolling this week, though. Like I said, stick with us on Twitter. All of the news and updates, and usually topics that I'm going to end up talking about on the show, I usually preview those on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter at CJJ Saez or on the Rockies Twitter at DNVR_Rockies. Shout out to our awesome producer, Alyssa, who's crushing it as always. And like I said, that's going to do it for us today. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast. We will see you guys on Wednesday at 12:15. As always, have a good one, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.